Yes, sir.
All right, at 6:30, I'm called Johnson City Council to order, 101 South Main, Johnson, Texas. This is an open meeting for the open meeting law of the state of Texas. We are conducting this as a Zoom meeting. In the agenda, if you look at that, it tells you the instructions on if you have any questions on any agenda item. There's a little flag that you can raise, and you can send your question to the city secretary, and then she will ask it during that particular agenda item. We do have a quorum present this time. That's Robert Purtle, to lead us in our pledge, followed by the invocation from Scott Kennedy. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day you've given us, Lord. We thank you for getting our city through the time that we went last week, Lord. We thank you that people have banded together and have reached out and helped one another. Lord, that the city did what this city is supposed to do, take care of each other. Lord, we thank you that as we come together to do this business tonight, that you give us all sound minds, that we can discuss and take care of things the way they need to be taken care of, that you give us the wisdom and the knowledge to make proper decisions for our city. We thank you and praise you for all these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
First item on the work session is to review and discuss questions related to the budget report and financial statement for January. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statement for January?
Mayor,
yes,
is this what everybody was asking for? Y'all asked for to kind of change up and just get summaries. Does this work for you guys?
Once a quarter.
And then once a quarter, you'll get the whole shebang. Okay.
That'll be fine. I do have a quick question.
Okay.
We need to figure out about. Okay.
About the miscellaneous.
Yes, the miscellaneous items are COVID expenses.
Okay.
Because when the budget started, we didn't have that line, so we're tracking that. You'll see even through here, all the miscellaneous items where you see the over budget stuff, that's what that is. It's COVID money. And then we'll adjust it when we do the budget amendment at the end of the year. Then we'll put that line item in place.
Yeah, makes sense. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, anybody else have any questions on the budget financial? All right, next is discussion regarding the setting the speed limit for clubhouse. Councilman Kimball had asked us to do that, and Mike, you're going to look into it.
Right. I think because of the traffic volume is not going to reach the amount that we really need to go through the engineering process. I've got Kristen doing a traffic count. We were doing it last week, but because of the weather, our numbers aren't real good. So we're going to do that again this week. And then we'll take a look at what those are, see what the average speeds are. I have not been able to hear back from the country club. We reach out to them to find out, just to see if there's any opposition. That thing is like it is because of the cart path that crosses there. I don't know. There's been a suggestion that we would add a couple of stop signs on the cart path for them, which is not a big deal to do if you do change it. But it's kind of up to you. I think you're okay if you want to do something without the study, but I think it'd be better to have the count just so you'll know what they are.
Okay, well, we've got to get the count this next month.
Absolutely. We'll start counting it next week. We'll run a couple of weeks, and then we'll put those numbers in for March.
Okay, good. All right, next is discuss and receive update regarding the February 2021 disaster regarding the snowstorm, power outage, water shortage, and waste collection. And I just want to give a big shout out to our city staff. I think everybody stepped up, Tom, and everybody at the fire department, public works out there. I don't think they missed a day last week. They worked right through, working every day. Give a shout out to Councilman Fleming. He helped them over at Mariposa and cleaned up their driveways and sidewalks. And he went Friday to the other side of Dallas and helped us pick up some water. Went with Alice's husband. He was off that day, so he even helped out. So Really appreciate the police department. We actually had one of our police officers fell and broke his leg, giving out water over at YMCA parking lot. We broke it in 3 places. Have some surgery. Like I said, I think everybody, stepped up. I know there's been comments on Facebook about maybe we didn't do enough, but Mike already, we had a meeting yesterday morning, first thing. We had all the department heads in, and we're gonna do like a SWOT analysis, find out what did we do right, what are the areas that we can work on. And I'm gonna let Mike give a report, basically just telling you about each of the items.
Thank you, Mayor. We're calling this Operation Frozen, the great snowstorm of 2021. I think we've gotten through it. We do have a few concerns that we're working through, small. The last really big obstacle was the boil water order, which was lifted this evening. So the water system is back up and good to go. We will be meeting with JSUD folks along with our department heads to talk about a lot of the stuff that caused the water issues. I haven't asked them to do a SWOT analysis. I really don't. I don't think they need me to ask them to do that. They've been studying this long ago. I have asked each of our department heads, though, specifically the fire department, police, and public works, to look at what their strengths and weaknesses, what opportunities we have, and then threats for the future. And then we're going to kind of put together a plan that will work, not so much for freezing events because they're so rare of this significance, but something that will kind of set us up for the heat of the summertime, for flooding. Flooding is probably our most obvious concern that we see fairly regular, but it'll be something where we have pallets of water already stationed. We have gloves, we have masks, and we have received a little bit of criticism online for things. We didn't open warming shelters. Number one, because of COVID, it's not a really good idea to put a bunch of people in a closed environment who don't know who they are. We didn't have enough masks available. Plus, we were in rolling blackouts, so we didn't have any confirmed facility that we could guarantee would stay powered up to get them in. We had a place to put them, but the power was out when we started getting ready to do that. So we opted, Burleson extended out to us. They had several opened up. They opened those up to us. And so we were able to provide that information that way. Burleson, some of their facilities had generators. And so they were prepared for those blackouts. The other things, what we did do was, with the help of Burleson, the city of Burleson really stepped up and helped out. The city manager contacted me a couple of different times and directed some of his department heads that whatever we needed, they needed to provide. I know the fire chief reached out to Chief Griffith, provided tons of water, really just, really stepped up and helped out. During this event, we were able to give out 14 pallets of water, which is equates to about 616 cases of water to residents and people in the surrounding area. We still have water available if there are needs that remain after tonight. We also set up a non-potable station to provide water so that people could use their restroom facilities. We gave away, passed out 2,600 gallons of water. JSUD helped with the tank. And again, the fire department set up a dump tank. We brought tankers in to keep them filled up, and everybody came together and got things moving. We don't have, other than the police officer, we don't have any reported other injuries to staff. We had some minor water breaks. We've got a small water leak at the police department that was fixed today that really was not COVID related. That's something that we're going to budget to fix next year. We did have a water break, a line break at the animal shelter. Didn't do a significant amount of damage because the walls around there are brick. So we've got a little bit of sheetrock to replace in the ceiling. We'll do that in-house. And the biggest issue we had is we've got a water line break on the splash pad. And it's a big line that curves around and hooks into the whole master setup. So they're going to have to come out and do that. The pipe's got to be bent and fitted in. We've reached out to them. We've started an insurance claim. And we're also, Chief Griffith is trafficking for the emergency management within the county, tracking all the storm damage and all of our damage so that we can work towards a reimbursement plan for that. Other than that, I think things are moving pretty well. We're going to meet together in a couple of weeks to discuss the SWOT analysis and how things went and what we can do to stay prepared should we see this again or some other event. And we will work through it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? I might add too that I talked with Mayor Fletcher over in Burleson, and they couldn't have been more understanding. And I mean, they were willing to help us out, police, fire, whatever we needed. And I felt bad because we couldn't do anything. And of course, one of our conversations, they were having some issues with Mariposa. Well, luckily, I've got a sort of connection with the owner of Mariposa, so I'd already had several phone calls with him about what was going on. And so I gave his number to the mayor in Burleson, and he actually called me back Sunday and appreciated it. He's got some meetings set up so that they go over some of the issues that they had with the Mariposa apartments over in Burleson. But very cordial, and like I said, anytime we needed anything, I think today they just posted, and he had said our citizens were welcome. They've got a Facebook page for getting the vaccine that you can go in and register on. I think Alice is going to get some information and make sure we get that posted on our website, that you'll be able to go over to Burleson and get that.
Mayor, can I mention one more
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
I want to point out, not to intentionally single out any staff member, because a lot of them stepped up, especially Public Works, that, 14, 16-hour days in the freezing cold. They really stepped up. But I was incredibly impressed by the police chief, who managed to drive every one of those days from Argyle to Joshua and did everything from pass out water to turn off water meters to sweeping out water. And when I got to the animal shelter, he had a squeegee in his hand, and everybody pulled together and worked very well. And not one time did he call and say he couldn't make it because of the weather. He made it every single day. And so that's a pretty good drive through that kind of, and even missed that pile up that went on. So very impressed by the chief.
Like I said, pass along to everybody, the thanks. Like I said, I mean, and even the staff here, we had a couple of gals that came in, what was it, Thursday, that, we were close, we didn't want anybody to get hurt, but I know Alice came in, Angela came in, they manned the phones. That way, if people were calling, we were keeping them updated. Like I said, that was about all we could do. We didn't have, a lot of the stuff was out of our control with the power and the water and the trash, but at least they were giving everybody the latest updates and at least trying to answer their questions, which I appreciate them coming in. Robert, you have a question?
Would it be appropriate for this council to write a letter of appreciation to the Burleson City Council and Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did the city manager. Like I said, he's the one that initially reached out to Mike.
I got a phone call myself because I'm actually personal friend with Chris Fletcher. I've been for decades. And he reached out to me in order to reach out to you guys, I think, before or during even when he was doing it. But he wanted to make sure that we all knew how Burleson is stepping up to help us whatever we need. And I know several churches really stepped up, and the Brick stepped in and offered their facility as a shower location. They couldn't do housing, but they said, citizens were welcome to come in. And I think overall, I think the city of Joshua handled everything just fine. I commend Mr. Fleming for stepping up and doing the things that you did. Not just the water. I know some other things that you got involved in and did, and I know the mayor did too. I wasn't able to do as much as I wish I could have done, but it's very nice to see that our community did come together. And I really salt on anybody that doesn't think we did as much as we can do, because I think the city did just fine. But I would add, Mike, to work with the SWOT analysis and maybe come up with some kind of procedure that might say, hey, if we're looking at some temperatures that are going to get down, here's what the first thing that we need to do 3 days ahead of time is get a hold of this and do this, and maybe get this water brought in and maybe have some things in a little
Preposition.
a little
well, and actually we
or some kind
We
of
have
building.
that with Public Works mainly for traffic. You know, we have the Sanders loaded up, we have everything fueled up, ready to go bring them in. What we didn't normally plan for was the water going
Water
out.
out. Water
And
out.
so that was what threw. And once we got rolling and got people knowing we needed water, there was no problem to get it. I mean, we got tons of it. We could fill up a swimming pool,
I was hit with
I think.
septic froze up. Of all things, my septic froze up. My water pipes never froze up. But my septic froze up. The last day, I'm like, really? But it only took just scooping the snow off the ground because that sunshine was so bright. Because
Right.
the snow was reflecting it, and I was actually at work Friday, and I told my wife, just scoop the snow away and let it hit that one spot where my pump station is. And it fired off in 30 minutes, it was dried out. But I just wanted to commend you guys and say thank you for all you did.
Well, I said it was definitely a community effort, because I was at Mariposa most of the day Saturday. I mean, there was a nonstop stream of people. Some people maybe brought in one grocery bag. We had several people brought in 8 to 10 grocery bags of food, just different things, paper plates, paper towels, and it was just all day. Plus, we had a lot of shut-ins over there. We had people that went and knocked on every single door. Gave them water, took food up to their rooms for them. We had the football team came over, the soccer team came over, and we got to put out all the trash that morning because we knew the trucks were coming. The players went through, picked up all the trash, took them down to the dumpster. So it was definitely a community effort.
Hip, hip, hooray.
Well, I received a call from the resident of Mariposa, and as grateful as you could be was the sound in his voice. He said, I cannot believe that people are griping about the city not doing enough. You know, if they wanted an example of what the city can and will do, come to Mariposa and talk to them.
Yep.
So the people there, and I've received about 15 phone calls from different residents that were so appreciative of how the city did step up and do the things that we could do. I do have one question that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
I know with the blackouts and the traffic not flowing, so on and so forth, there became a little bit concerned about having enough fuel for our police vehicles to get around. I know that you guys found a good way around it and you worked it. Being as short-lived as it wasn't that big of a deal. Had it gone on longer or had the electricity not come back on, you know, we kind of might need to have a emergency backup plan for being able to get fuel for our.
We had that conversation in the staff meeting. That will be part of the SWOT analysis, and then we're looking at some options that would address that.
So I've got 3 quick questions.
Okay.
Our EOC, that we have, our emergency operations center, did we activate that? at
We
any
did-
time?
We did not activate it because really the biggest challenge that we had was water, and that seemed to be working pretty quick. I think that had we started having to move people, that would have been something we'd have looked at doing. But it all kind of came so quick, and the people that would have been in there, we were passing hot water. Chief? Absolutely.
We don't have the staff to man EOC. EOC is in the field with us. I'm on the phone constantly. I probably made 70 phone calls.
Right.
Back and forth with different entities arranging for water and things like that. For me and 1 or 2 other people sitting in EOC try to do that, it just wouldn't work. Plus, it would take us out of the field actually doing hands-on labor. We have to do. So that's primarily why we activate EOC.
I understand.
And we'll have some conversation about that too.
Who commands that? Because I know on the city's website right now, it still shows Wayne Baker, so I didn't know. if
Yeah,
we had-
we're actually making, I went through that yesterday. We're
Oh,
making
okay.
some of those changes. The chief is the emergency management coordinator. And typically he will be in command of stuff. I would be in there. The mayor would be in there. And then we have a chart based on what circumstance we're dealing with that kind of dictates who comes in and what we need. But typically we'll have somebody from the police department in there if we have that going on. We also, this was kind of a county-wide deal, so a lot of the stuff was going through the county. And I don't know if they ever officially activated their EOC. I know they had people in working, but we were kind of coordinating things through them. But we're looking at some things with Burleson and with them to work through that as well. Usually when we open up the EOC, it's because we're watching bad weather so that we can be out in front of that, and we have a couple of people in there for the storm sirens and things like that. But most of the decisions, like Chief was saying, are made out in the field.
All questions?
No, would you, I guess we'll probably wait till after we do the little SWOT analysis before we start, I guess, like brainstorming for future.
And that's going to be fairly quick. I've asked for them in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll sit down again and start working out a plan.
Thank you.
And that my guess is that plan will be presented to y'all in a way of information at your March meeting. That I'm trying to shoot for March or April, but that will kind of get it out to you.
Thank you. You guys have anything else in the storm? All right, next, anybody have any questions regarding any of our regular session agenda items? Do you have anything from public forum?
No, sir.
All right, we're gonna have a proclamation, but I'll tell her she has to be here. I don't know whether any of y'all knew, but Carla Bonham had resigned 2 weeks ago. And we got a going away luncheon for her on Friday, and various
Cost me
staff,
100
Mike and I, and sort of just twisted some arms and everything. And over the weekend, she got like more than she was gonna stay. She's been here for 19 years, our longest serving employee. Does a great job, so we're just ecstatic that she decided to stay. So I'll give her the proclamation.
Is today Carla Bonham Day?
Yeah.
She wasn't here. She took off.
All right, so we didn't have anybody to speak on public forum, correct?
Something just popped up. Let me see. It's more of a comment. This is Mariposa's water was out 4 to 5 days. They could not flush the toilets. We tried to get snow and then fish out the pool. JSA did not arrive until Wednesday. It's just a comment.
Thank you. All right, next item is the consent agenda. Let's consider approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held on January 21st, 2021. And is consider acceptance of the 2020 racial profiling report submitted by the chief of police.
Move we approve.
I'll second.
You got a motion by Scott Kimball, second by Robert Fleming to approve the minutes, or excuse me, to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the January 21st meeting and the 2020 racial profiling report. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Now going to the regular agenda. Discuss, consider, and take possible action on an ordinance abandoning and vacating certain prescriptive alleyways as reflected in the February 11th, 1914 plat of Rediker's addition to Joshua. This is the corner of 174 and 12th Street where the Valero is now. Circle K owns that. They bought up all of the properties and they're wanting to redevelop it. There was an alleyway that was owned that 1914 plat, which was 107 years ago, and that was never used. There was never an alleyway or street or anything. So they're asking if we will vacate that so that they can use the entire property for bringing into. I think they're going to have it for trucks and deliveries and that kind of thing. It's going to be a real nice facility. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mike?
Well, this came up several years ago when they first started. So all of the utilities have already been relocated other than Encore's got some power lines in there, but those are going to have to be moved during construction. So and they're overhead. So there's no other utilities in the ground. Like I say, they asked for this several years ago, but then everything kind of got put on hold and it just never went forward. So we're good to go. There's no reason why we wouldn't, that I know of, that we wouldn't abandon that.
I was thinking we'd already abandoned it.
Well, we thought we had to, but we couldn't find it. All we found was where we had stuff cleared out. So I think when they pulled back, when all this bypass stuff came up and they slowed down, I think they just never officially made the request to do it.
I remember discussing.
Yeah, so, but it is ready to do.
Anybody have any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Robert Fleming, seconded by Mike Kidd to approve an ordinance abandoning and vacating the certain prescriptive alleyway as reflected on the February 11th, 1914 plat of Reddick's Addition to Joshua. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next is discuss, consider, and take possible action on an ordinance repealing existing Article 3.03, the substandard and dangerous buildings of Chapter 3, building regulations of the Code of Ordinances, and replacing it with a new Article 3.03, substandard and dangerous buildings. I think, Mike, we had, at the last meeting, we had postponed this into this meeting so that everybody could submit any comments or make any changes.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I did have a conversation with Robert, who came in with some questions. I had not received any written questions, but again, this is an ordinance that amends a current ordinance that's in place and brings it into compliance with state law. It strengthens the property owner's rights where it requires public hearings now that currently we do not. And as we go through this agenda shortly, I'm going to point out to you exactly why we don't want to take buildings down. But other than that, nothing's been changed. I think we answered the questions of the criminal act versus civil issue. And so, again, I think this just legit or brings what we currently have into current state law.
Anybody have any questions, concerns? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
A motion by Robert Burton, seconded by Scott Kendall to approve the changes to Article 3.3 substandard and dangerous buildings of Chapter 3 building requirements and code of ordinances and replacing it with a new Article 3. For any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Next, discuss, consider, and take possible action on an ordinance changing the name of a public road or street in the city of Joshua from Mountain Air Road to Plum Street. This is down at Joshua Station. There used to be a mobile home park called Mountain Air that was on the south side. It lines up with Plum Creek, which is across the street. And so to avoid any confusion, we talked about renaming Mountain Air to Plum Creek. And this is just going through the process to do that. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
Make the motion to approve.
A motion by Mike Kidd, second by Rick DePriest to approve changing the name of Mountain Air Road to Plum Street. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on an ordinance amending Article 87.007 alcoholic beverage permit fees of Appendix A fee schedule to the city's code of ordinances and replace it with a new Article 87.000 alcoholic beverage permit fees, bring them in compliance with state law. I did have a request from Councilman DePriest that, Alice, when you do these, when we're talking about a state law, if you could reference that particular state law, so if somebody wants to research it,
Yes,
they
sir.
can go back and look at it.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion by Robert Fleming, seconded by Mike Kidd to approve amending Article A 7.007 alcoholic beverage permit fees of Appendix A fee schedule to the city of Joshua's code of ordinances and replace it with a new Article A 7.000. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action to approve the sale of certain real property acquired at a delinquent tax foreclosure sale. Clause number T201500028, lots 1, 2, and 3 of block 16, original town of Joshua. And I'd ask Mike, if he can give us a little bit of the history on that so that everybody understands what's going on here.
Mayor, this was a home that was owned by a former resident. Had a mobile home on it. and the bank, for whatever reasons, foreclosed on the mobile home, but they did not foreclose on the property. It was left abandoned for several years. We continued to reach out to the property owner because it still showed him as the property owner. He refused to really do anything with it. So after several years of running people out of it and, you know, having little fires started and so forth, we ended up just took the trailer down. It was in too bad a shape to pull it off the lot. So we tore down the mobile home, scrapped the metal frame that was on it, recovered a little bit of our money with that, but we have spent a considerable amount of money over the years mowing that property, keeping it from overgrowing. And this property is a perfect example of why we don't want to tear down houses and do things. It takes years to get through the process. We were awarded this property a couple of years ago, but we never got anything officially until the legal attorneys that work for the counties to deal with these properties, they work out the agreements for how much anybody gets. And usually the school district gets these properties because they have the biggest liens. We got it because we had the most liens on it, not because of tax, but because of maintenance on the property and cleaned it up. So this piece of property came to us, and then everybody takes a negotiated share of the price of the bid, and we get it back on the tax rolls. And so we're going to get $5,386 out of this, and we probably have 3 or 4 times that invested in it. So it's a loss to us, but it gets it out of being stagnant, gets it back on the tax roll.
Built on it, now we'll have something back on the tax roll.
Absolutely.
And what ended up happening, there's a gentleman put in a bid of 22,000. Since we had the most, still haven't quite figured out how this is, because the school district's getting 11,000, we're only getting 5,000, but we were the ones that were in control, so we get to accept the bid. And we've only had, I think we had 2 bids, one for 22,000, one for 10,000. So basically what we're going to be doing tonight is accepting that bid. Then the transaction will take place, and I believe in our packets we have the distribution of who would get what. School district's going to get a little over 11,000, and I think we get about 5,000.
My understanding, tax liens get paid off first versus mechanics liens, which is what we have. So I think that's why you're seeing that number like that.
Mayor, just as a reminder, Allison, our tax attorney, is online if anyone has any questions for her.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions on this?
Oh, there she is.
All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
Motion we approve the sale of this property.
Got a motion by Mike Kidd, second by Angela Nichols, to approve accepting the offer of the $22,000 for the sale of certain real property acquired in delinquent tax foreclosure sale. Calls number T201500028, lots 1, 2, and 3, block 16 of the original town of Joshua. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Excuse me. Next, discuss, consider, and take possible action on a resolution requesting the Johnson County Constable to sell property to the highest bidder to satisfy delinquent taxes owed to the city of Joshua, Joshua ISD, Hill College, and Johnson County. Calls number 201400364, 1.35 acres of the J. Manette Survey Abstract 547. If you went through your packet and looked at this piece of property, it is landlocked. We had a developer that had come and talked to us about it, but once he found out it was landlocked, he backed out. You know, there's really nothing you can do with the property. The only ones that could possibly probably do anything would be the adjacent property owners that might want to buy it. And I think if we do approve this, that's probably would be the next step, is they would contact those folks.
That was my question. Can we do that?
We got the tax attorney on here, maybe that's a question for her. If we vote to put this up for bid, can we contact the adjacent property owners to see if they're interested?
Yes, so if you elect to go the route of a public resale, which is the resolution that you have before you tonight, what we would do is we would contact all of these adjacent landowners and make them aware of the opportunity to show up at the tax sale and bid on the property.
So y'all would do that?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
All right,
but it would occur on the courthouse steps,
all right.
action auction.
And when was this property abandoned? Probably in it, but it's been a while, hasn't it?
This was struck off in 2018.
Anybody have any questions?
So we're talking about doing this as just like a regular sheriff's sale around the courthouse steps. First Tuesday.
And I think that actually is what happened, if I'm not mistaken, on the first one, and nobody put in any bids. So if nobody puts in any bids, then it comes back to us to handle as we see fit. Anybody else have any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Robert Burton, seconded by Rick Caprice, to approve requesting the Johnson County Constable to sell the property to the highest bidder to satisfy delinquent taxes owed to the city of Joshua, Joshua ISD, Hill County, and Johnson County, calls number T 201400364, the city of Joshua. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on a resolution expressing support of House Bill 1030 in the regular session of the 87th legislature regarding alternative public notice provisions. I think Alice pretty well explained it, but this would get it to where we would have the option to use, Facebook, internet, local homeowner associations, school hour, everything to publicize these events instead of requiring us to put it in the newspaper. Right now, we have to put it in the Cleveland paper, which is the closest one, and there's probably very few residents in Joshua that are reading the Cleveland paper. So we could do a whole lot better job if they would approve this, and we could get that information out to more people. Say that right, Alice?
Yes, sir, exactly.
Anybody?
We weren't getting the coverage when we lost the.
Yeah, we lost the Joshua paper and then the Burleson Star. And like I said, this is just a deal showing our support that we will pass along to the folks that be down in Austin and tell them that we support this legislation. Anybody else have any questions?
I can make the motion.
All right.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mike Pierce, second by Scott Kimball to do a resolution expressing the council's support of House Bill 1030 in the regular session of the 87th legislature. Any other questions? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on the resolution expressing support of Senate Bill 131 in the regular session of the 87th legislature regarding future election dates. What this one was is, as we went through this last time, we moved our elections, which are in the charter, from May to November at the request of the governor. Right now, our charter states that we can only have them in May, and we don't have the option to change that. With this legislation, we would have the option, even though it's in the charter, we could change to the November election. I think the best thing about that is we get a lot higher turnout when we can have an election in November versus May. I think the numbers show that, we get 500 or better. And if we just have a regular local election, I think the last, when we had the runoff, it was a couple hundred people, and that's it. So I think it's, it's better for everybody in the community if we have the elections at one time and get out the vote. So this is, again, just expressing our support. Anybody have any questions on that one? Entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Robert Burton, second by Robert Fleming, to do a resolution expressing support of Senate Bill 131 in the regular session. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next is discuss, reconsider, and take possible action on the gas well setback waiver packet and application filed by Scott Sandlin on October 28th, 2019. I think we tabled it back then, or there was a 3-3 vote, and so it never went through, and did ask that it be put back on. If we remember, we did pass an ordinance that our ordinance says that it requires a 600-foot setback for any house to be built. We did come back later and lower it to where we could do a waiver down to 200 feet. What they're actually asking for is a waiver of, I think, about 165 feet. And it's just on 4 lots, and it actually gets less and less on some of the lots. There was one lot that they were asking for this waiver. We talked to the people that own the gas well. It's just too expensive right now to cap them. What they did on the other one out in Joshua Meadows, they actually capped it. I think that expense is around $80,000 to $100,000, and you know, with the way the economy is, the way the gas is, they're just not going to do that. But we did get a letter stating that they did not foresee anytime in the future that they would be reopening or re-drilling that gas well. We had our inspector go out and check it and give us a recommendation of whether or not the way the houses were platted. And this plat was actually done and approved before the gas well got put in. And the gas inspector did not see any issues with it. And so Salmon's just asking if we do that for those 4 lots. And like I said, just lower it. We do have the option to lower it to 200 feet, but he's just asking to lower it to 400 and something feet. Anybody have any questions?
The closest house to this would be 506 feet,
Yeah,
would be
so
the closest corner of any house. So it's,
it'll be 506 feet. And the well is not on any of this property. It's actually on adjacent property.
So why is he naming it lower than 165 if the closest home is 506?
It's a property line. Is that the reason?
yeah, the property, the way, if you look at, they've got it broken down, it shows the different radiuses. It hits the property line, but then it actually hits the house. So I think the property line is 94 or some odd feet from it, and then the 165 or whatever comes to is where the house actually goes, where the corner will actually
Because
hit.
the setback is based on the house. It's not based on property.
What setback?
The 600-foot setback is based on where residents.
Right. They just showed a graph that drew out and gave some foot markings as to where the 600-foot radius hit. That's where those numbers came from.
And the 465 is, like I said, they're not even going all the way to the house. It's, you know, they actually drew it a little bit shorter, but that's just what they're asking for the waiver thing. It's actually farther to the houses. If you went to the corners of the houses, it's going to be more.
My concern back in 2019, just for Robert's sake,
I was here.
was because I didn't want a builder to build homes and then a purchaser to buy a home, not knowing necessarily what they agreed upon, that they might be inside of a initial setback of 600 feet, and we gave a variance for it to be built just for the sake of building more homes and get more pads. I was against it then. If the home itself is outside that area, I'm not as against it, but I still am leery because it's not the person building the home. It's the person building the home asking for the variance, not the person that's going to live in the home.
Well, the platting
That's my
process,
drawback.
I see where you're going. The platting process will address that, because these lots have another issue too. They've got huge gas easements behind them. So they can't build anything back there any closer. Those are also going to show up on the plat.
Isn't the 600 foot outside this radius circle that's on the plat?
Yeah, but the property line's not. We got to have it by the property line.
Okay, so if you're looking where the houses are, the houses are all outside that 600 foot radius.
Right.
So
506. It'll be 506.
Well, the radius, the circle that's drawn there is 465. It's not the 600-foot circle. It's a 465-foot circle,
well, okay.
which is what the variance was he's asking.
It's kind of small. It's hard to see here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm confused.
So
The
the
circle
house,
drawn on this drawing is not a 600-foot circle.
It's
No, he only
465.
It's 465.
which is what he was asking for, but the houses, if you look, they're further than that 465, so that's why really, in reality, the
Yes, it
house,
says 165, it doesn't say 465. So where are these numbers coming from? That doesn't jive. It says right here in black and white, 165 feet. What it's requesting, not 465.
no, he's not requesting the 400. What we're saying is, the 465, you can go 400 and you're not hitting, so that's all in compliance.
Yeah.
He's asking for the difference between 465 and 600, which is just 135 feet, 165. But the circle is showing you that if you went 465 feet, you still hadn't got to the houses yet. And he's asking for that 135-foot variance.
I think he stopped at that because that's where that easement stops, and that would
Right.
still give them a little bit of room if they wanted a little yard barn or something. That was kind of what he conveyed to me.
I didn't even realize the pipeline easement is on the backside of the properties too, so
These people don't know.
they can't even get closer. You can't build homes any closer.
Right.
So, yeah.
so if somebody wanted to build a shop or pool back there, they couldn't do it, right?
You probably couldn't put it on top of the gas
They
line.
can't put it on top of that gas line.
You can't.
We talked about this before. I brought in, I was 49 and showing all this, what I found on the internet, a lot of gas wells leaking and everything. So if this starts to leak your gas and it kills somebody in a house or destroys it or whatever, if we give away, the city can be liable. Well, that was gonna be my question is,
No, I don't think so.
I know when the state of Texas requires 200 feet.
Right.
That's the state of Texas.
Exactly.
I know we have 600.
Right.
I worked in the oil business over 13 years, and that was gonna be my question is, hydrogen sulfide or H2S is the most prominent organic gas that kills people from these wells. I've worked around it a lot. If we were to grant a waiver, even though it is only on our 600 foot, not the Texas required 200 foot, would we be liable at any point for that?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Attorney, am I correct?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any liability the city would face with that.
I think if we tried to do something below that 200 feet,
Right, yeah.
we would have some
Yeah.
issue
Well,
because
that's where I'm hung up is because the wording in this,
What are you looking at?
the
I
the
think we're
ordinance
saying,
as it's written here, the ordinance as it's written on the sheet, says in the front, the property line variance would be for 165 feet from the 600-foot setback.
Okay, that should be 135.
that's just probably a typo.
Yeah.
It probably is, because that's what I took it.
Okay, so they're.
Because here on his request, he's asking for the 465.
Okay, because originally, he was asking for 165 feet. He wanted it lower to 165 feet. And I just want to make sure that we're not,
Now, you couldn't do that anyway, because that goes against state law. State law is 200 feet minimum.
okay, so the way it's going to be worded is it's going to be,
He's getting 135 feet off of the 600, so he's still going to be 465 feet from the gas well.
as long as it states that. Because it didn't read that way to me. I'm seeing the other pages where it does state that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you
The actual
something.
ordinance, here's the actual ordinance.
It's not much of an excuse, but they replaced my computer here a while back, and I have a much smaller keyboard, and I'm having to really go back and reread because of my fat fingers. It's much more condensed, so that's 165 is not right, but his application or his request that's in here is what he's asking for.
From the map perspective.
Correct.
I'm thinking the reason why he pointed out the 465 is because that's right on the edge of
The gas well, yeah.
And so that, so if you didn't request it all the way there, then whoever buys that middle property wouldn't be able to build anything behind the house.
Right.
So I think that he just pulled it
It's
back.
like it's changing the whole
Right.
requirements.
Because the house is still gonna be 506 feet.
All this
Yeah,
was together a while
And
back.
that- and that was only one of the houses, I think the rest of them will actually be closer to 600.
So we asked the attorney.
Yeah.
And the rest of that is still park, right?
Yes,
The-
the open space down there will be park space.
And the park is not subject to, because it's green space, it's not subject to the setbacks necessarily as long as they don't build structures inside the.
Right, if we don't build a structure, we could put a walking path, across that easement or something. So it'd have to be temporary, but we couldn't build any permanent structure on it.
It did bring up a good question though, Alice, and that's some of these asterisks in here. If we approve this, it doesn't say in the ordinance what we gave.
Sir, that's exactly what I was just asking Mike, because we just moved everything over from the previous time. And looking at this ordinance, it doesn't talk about this variance. It looks like it's changing all the requirements in our code of ordinances.
Right.
So
So we just need to make sure we put specifically in this ordinance.
that's
that
right,
we're giving him
A variance.
135-foot variance.
yes.
All right, everybody on the same page?
Same. Alice, are we on the same page?
Yes, sir. I would make sure that the ordinance is written, I'll get with Terry or Jeremy, that it's written just for a variance for this property for 135 feet. Okay.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion? Motion to approve. Got a motion by Robert Purtle, seconded by Angela Nichols to approve the gas well setback waiver packet and application filed by Scott Stanley. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next, discuss, consider, and take possible action on the award of a bid for the State Highway 174 deceleration, acceleration, and left turn lanes for the purpose of furnishing all plants, labor, materials, and equipment, and the performance of all work required in construction. I'm gonna let Mike get into the details, but this is basically, we had a 380 agreement with Retail Connections to bring in the Starbucks and the Panda and the other things, and part of their request was is that we have a left turn lane in that would be coming from Cleveland, you can turn left and go in, I think before you got to, it'd be between the Panda and the Starbucks. is where the left
Correct.
turn lane is. And we had said that we would pay for that money, so we tried to award the contract, what did we do, 2 or 3 bids, and we didn't get any responses.
The third time we got one.
Third time we finally got one bid. So I'll turn it over and let Mike explain it a little bit more.
This process started back under Josh, and then we separated the projects because we wanted to maintain control of the highway project. And so this was bid, it was out. We didn't receive any bids the first time. We didn't receive any bids the second time. We were able to get bids the third time, or get a bid the third time. It was one of the companies that we specifically sent the bid package to. It's one that is known by Pacheco Coke, who is the engineer for us that designed this hooded left, as TxDOT calls it. And so that bid came in. There was allocated $750,000 for the construction of this. The bids came in, exceeded that. And we're seeing that on everything that we're doing right now. The cost of things are just going up. So the bid came in, exceeded funds available by $126,000. Of that, there is some contingency money, but the total amount of funding set aside for this project was $2.125 million. $750 for this. The other project that was also expected to be around $750,000 is projected to come in less at about $715,000. So that makes up 34, plus there's another $50,000 that was set aside to lower the Magellan gas line. We're not lowering that line. We chose to move the road away from it because it didn't cost us anything, and it aligned the road. So 84,000 of that, we're very confident can be made up. So it's going to leave a balance if we don't find some savings in there that will work to do of $41,797. It would need to be made up from type A if we don't find some other savings. Type A's fund balance will allow for that. There will be funding for that at that time when it comes up. We would probably save that recommendation and amendment to their budget when we get to that point, so that we have a more exact number. I received a letter today. I believe your staff report indicates that we did not receive a recommendation from Pacheco Coke. I did get that today, and they are recommending the contractor. And I've also been very clear with them that we're gonna sit down and work with them to eliminate some of this to try to bring this more in line with the budget.
How was this announced and where did it go to?
It went out to the local paper. It went out to a couple of the reporting sites. There's a couple of websites you can send stuff to that TxDOT a lot of times advertises on. It went out on there. And then we specifically sent it to contractors that we were aware of that have done work for us in the past. Biggest problem we got, well, the biggest reason was they all say it's too small of a job. And in the context of TxDOT projects, it is a pretty small project, but that's the biggest reason is it's just not big enough for what we're trying to get. We got that same issue when we did the EPA bids for Oak Hill and Edge Hill streets. We only got one bid in for those, and we bid those a couple of times also. So we would work, this would be approving the full amount, and we will go to work just as quick as we do the pre-construction meetings with this contractor to try to find some savings in some of this and not violate. I've also spoken with the area engineer for TxDOT. I've told them that we need to try to find some things. They're going to work with us to try to help bring this more in line with what we have allocated.
Have any questions?
Call Burleson and ask them.
Yeah, I'm not sure
They
we'd
said
get.
they'd be willing to do that.
That's right.
I'm not sure how we would get that, but
Well, they offered them. They didn't say.
That's what they asked, right?
They heard that.
should ask them when it was froze over, I
Yeah.
guess.
Hey, we gotta chip some ice out here. You gotta chip in the.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept this ordinance.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Mike Kidd, seconded by Scott Kimball to award the bid for the State Highway 174 deceleration, acceleration. And just so you do, one of them is the left turn lane, but when you're coming from Burleson to there, we have to have a deceleration lane. So that's why I put the deceleration portion of that was. And the left turn lanes for the purpose of furnishing all plants, labor, materials, and equipment, and the performance of all work required in the construction. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I'm
7-0.
Can we add into that motion authorization to issue the notice to proceed?
All right. You want to amend your motion? Put it-
I so amend the motion to do that.
All right. Anybody have any questions on that?
Sorry about that.
Everybody, all in favor of that with the amendment? Still carry 7-0.
We only do that because that's when the clock starts, is when we give them that. And there's damages if they don't get done with a certain amount of days.
The next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on board appointments. The one that we've got up this time is for our Heritage Preservation, or not Heritage, Heritage Overlay Committee. Right now, we're having a problem calling for a meeting because the gentleman that bought the property right across the street, Robbie Rumfeld, is wanting to submit some plans for the retail, but he's on that board, and if he's off, if he doesn't vote, and we've got 2 vacancies, we don't have a quorum. So we reached out to Chris Maddox, who owns some of the other property in downtown, and he's willing to serve on that the requirements for that board, you do not have to be a citizen. You can be, but if you're a property owner in downtown, you're eligible to be on that board, whether you're a citizen or not. So Mr. Maddox is going to step up and be on that board. That way we can go ahead and approve or let them see the plans that Mr. Rumfield has submitted for the retail across the street and get something going on that. And just as an update, I don't know if you've driven by lately, they've already started on the parking lot. Doesn't have anything to do with this, but well, I guess the overlay has to approve something on the parking lot for the lights. So you still need to get here to the overlay group to meet. Does anybody have any questions? Consider a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
A motion by Robert Fleming, seconded by Rick Priest to place Chris Maddox on the historical overlay committee. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next, our staff report.
I'm sorry, can I cut in one real fast? I'm sorry. I was hoping we could readdress item G9 about the gas ball waiver packet. I just want to clarify a couple of things. The ordinance that was included in your packet, that was simply just a recitation of the ordinance and the setback requirements and the ability for them to get a certain waiver from that. Instead, so we're not going to be passing any ordinance about the setback. Instead, this the ordinance is called for you guys, the city council, to either accept, reject, or modify the application that he sent in. And so I just want to make sure that the motion that you guys made and that you guys voted on calls for either accepting, rejecting, or modifying the applications. There's not going to be an ordinance that will be passed on this.
That makes
All right.
sense.
So basically what he's saying is we just need to go back and say we're going to accept the application. So that in effect implies that we're giving the waiver. So who had made that one?
Councilmember Purdom.
Robert, so do you make that sense? All right, so we're going to change to where the action will be that we're going to accept the application submitted by Scott Sandlin for the development. Anybody have a question on that? All those in favor? Motion carries still 7. Okay.
Mayor,
All right, thank you, sir.
Mayor.
Bringing that up.
who second that?
I'll say.
Okay. Thank you.
Staff reports, there was an economic development update that was submitted, it came in late, so that's on the sheet. We have the police, fire, municipal court, public works, and city secretary report. Does anybody have any questions? Scott?
I don't have a question. I want to make a comment. Last month when we were discussing the fire department, I was pretty hard on Chief Griffin about making promises that, we had made before, not kept. Based on what I'm hearing from both chief and the city manager, those promises that he's made is being kept. The new firefighters are up and our response time, our response percentage, and having adequate coverage when they get there is meeting the goals that he has established. And I want to commend Chief Griffith for following through on what he told us he was going to do.
To my knowledge, we haven't missed a call yet, right?
In February, they had one call on the 2nd of February, just before the paid firefighters.
Right before they started.
They went on shift work February the 6th, and there has not been a missed call since that day. And that includes during the ice storm or frozen, whatever you want to call it.
To piggyback off of his comment, I would also like to commend Chief Griffin. I went down, this was last week before last, and met with him, sat with him for quite a while, and had a lot of questions about how things used to run versus how they run now. And I think the morale from the firefighters that I have met around town, driving around there, showing the new paid firefighters where to go. The morale has increased a lot under his watch, and I just want to commend him. He's doing a great job. I think things are going to get a lot better. So,
Do we, Chief, do you anticipate a resurgence or rejuvenation of our volunteer pool? are you gonna start doing anything, any new steps or different steps on recruiting, trying to get new volunteers and reaching out?
I don't think we have to. We had to come in and
Steady growth.
slowly. Since I've been here, of course, we have to put on basically a 4-month candidate course with all the hours required for USD. But since I've been here, we're starting another class. We've added about 6 new volunteers. What we're seeing though is they're coming up and spending more time at the station, which is what we really want to see.
That is what we need to see.
And then you say we've got about 4 or 5 paid people that are working for other departments now that are volunteering for our department.
We have 2 currently, one for Arlington, one for Midlothian. We have a retired Arlington on Hale. He's after the training, and he's responsible for orienting all of our new paid guys to the job, which he did an excellent job with. And I recently had a first firefighter who's close by and fired out. So also very good.
Much different than when I was in high school, when you just heard the siren that went off and you just ran out and everybody started hanging on the pickup. It's like, who wants to volunteer today? We got, grass fire over here off of.
They call that back in the day.
Back in the day, I helped on a few grass fires over down Stadium Drive on that, and it really was. It's just, you just showed up, started swinging shovels and brooms and potato sacks and put the wet stuff in that. But no, it's great to see these new firefighters come on. I have heard some good comments and everything, and they got their feet wet real quick when the ice hit. They
Well, we're real fortunate. We didn't have any fires. I think we had a couple of wrecks. Is what we were mainly worried
Yeah,
about.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They were there and prepared for where they had to be.
And they're doing an excellent job. We really got very blessed with these 3.
Good.
And as you said, we only had 4 candidates and we've got 3 excellent ones.
4 that were interviewed.
Yeah. So that was good. Anybody else have any questions on any of the reports? All right, well, we are not going to have an executive session. We had some stuff that Perry was working on for us, and since he was not available, he actually on second, third, or 4th Tuesday, whatever this is, he has the city of Prosper, I believe, that he goes to. So we will pick that up at our March council meeting. So
I did have some questions.
okay.
One, there is on all the well sites, there's usually I don't know what you call it, but a gate that will have the multiple locks on it. I have a road in my property that's a gas road, lease road. Recently, within the last 6 months to a year, that's gotten out of control to the point now where that chain has been cut so many times and locks are broken. And the last 2 or 3 times I've gone over there, it's been the locks are laying on the ground and the chains laying on the ground. What do I need to go through? What steps do I need to go through to get that fixed without locking out someone?
You just did.
Okay.
We'll take
Because
care of
it needs to be addressed. I've got my own personal lock that I've been
guys.
because it's my road. I have to have access to it too, but I just went over there today, as a matter of fact, and the locks are, one is attached to the gate and they're just hanging over the rail there. You can just walk over, pick it up and get in.
We'll contact them and
So
have them come get it done.
you guys will, you take care of that?
We'll take care of it tomorrow.
Thank you. And then the other one has to do with the ordinance that we passed to align us with state law on abandoned burnout properties or burnout homes. I've noticed over the several years that this house has been vacant because it had a fire in it. The house behind the car wash, the ranchette estates, or I can't remember the name of the mobile home park. It's the mobile home park behind the
Branches of Joshua.
the ranches. The ranches.
On 174.
Yeah, that rock house there has been burned out for probably close to 10 years. and has been, I don't believe it's been inhabited since, but I don't know if it's ever become a bad issue, but that might be one we need to put on our radar to. start
Well,
watching.
evidently nobody's complained about it because
Well,
I've
I mean, considering what.
been at least 12 years
You've
because
got businesses on both sides of it and from.
sits back off the road, doesn't it?
It was the original owner of the ranch estate.
See, I think he still owns it because he was talking about making a little clubhouse or something out of that at one time.
Well, it's still got a big giant burnt hole in the roof, and I know the old woman that lived there that was the owner at one time. I guess she's passed now, but that home's been vacant for a long time.
We'll check on it.
Just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Candace, Joey.
If
Anybody
you
have
ever
any,
notice it, because it is set back, it is kind of bad.
anybody have any future agenda items we want to put on?
I have maybe a request. Is there any way that we could speak maybe the next meeting about what we can do to start opening these meetings up more towards the public?
We've already started at night. We were trying to get for this and we did. We're getting some dividers so that we can all sit up here and that way we'll be able to get more chairs out. I mean, we're not gonna be able to have as full as we were, but at least we're gonna be able to get more if we, because that's the main problem is once we spread out, well, then there's nothing left for anybody. So we are already working on that.
All right.
I'm sure Alice has put that on there. Angela?
I just looked at this economic development and I just want to, just very interested what Miranda has been doing. I think this will be a great idea to do that online newspaper. That's very nice. I just wanted to say kudos to her.
All right, anything else? We're adjourned at 7:41. Chief, who's our officer?